Welcome back to Iraqi Dinar, the channel where we cut through the noise, ignore the hype, and focus on what actually matters. Let me start with something that might surprise you. There's no hype right now. No dramatic press conferences, no flashy announcements, no countdown clocks. No, this is the week, headlines flooding the financial news cycle. Just quiet. And if you've been in this investment for any serious length of time, you already know when it gets quiet like this, that's when you lean in closer. Because historically, Iraq does not telegraph its most important monetary moves with fireworks and confetti. It doesn't build suspense. It doesn't run marketing campaigns, it executes. And that's exactly what we may be witnessing again. The monetary reform items, the structural changes, the regulatory shifts, the banking integrations, the tightening of the parallel market, the digitization initiatives, they haven't disappeared. They've been advancing steadily, quietly, methodically. There hasn't been hype around them, but that doesn't mean nothing is happening. It means the work is being done behind the curtain. And those of us who have been studying this, not guessing, not speculating wildly, but actually studying the patterns and remember what Governor Alex said during the last exchange rate change. It was effective immediately. No fanfare, no hype. Effective immediately. That's how serious monetary authorities operate when they are confident in their structural positioning. They don't negotiate with public emotion. They execute policy. And that's what makes this current silence so interesting. Because reforms are not stagnant, they are advancing. Banking compliance has strengthened. Electronic payment systems have expanded. Currency smuggling enforcement has intensified. Dollar auction mechanisms have evolved. Cross-border financial transparency has increased. These are not random developments. These are foundational pieces. And when you look at major monetary transitions globally, you see the same blueprint: stabilize the framework first, control leakage, align with international compliance standards, reinforce banking relationships, then adjust the mechanism. Not the other way around. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make in this space is expecting a monetary event to feel emotional. They expect excitement. They expect celebration. They expect a build-up. But central banks don't operate emotionally. They operate strategically. Silence is not weakness. Silence is often preparation. If you look back historically, not just in Iraq, but globally, major financial shifts often occur with minimal warning. The groundwork is laid quietly over months and years. The public sees small policy adjustments, regulatory tweaks, system upgrades, enforcement actions. Individually, they don't seem dramatic, but collectively, they form a launchpad. Right now, we're seeing the steady tightening of financial controls inside Iraq. The parallel market pressure has been addressed more aggressively than ever before. International banking channels have become more structured. The push toward formalized digital transactions continues to expand. These are reform signals. They aren't loud signals, but they are consistent. And consistency in reform is far more powerful than hype in speculation. Now let's talk about design. Because I truly believe this quiet phase is by design. Why would a central bank choose to move without hype? Simple. Stability. When you announce monetary adjustments, you invite speculation spikes. You invite manipulation. You invite volatility. But when you execute swiftly and immediately, you reduce chaos. You reduce arbitrage windows. You reduce panic. You reduce the ability for bad actors to exploit timing gaps. That's strategic control. And Iraq has learned from past cycles. In earlier years, gaps between policy and enforcement created distortions. The parallel market widened. Currency outflows became harder to contain. Smuggling pressures increased. That's not the environment you want when adjusting monetary value. So what do? You stabilize first. You align internationally. You close loopholes. You modernize banking systems. You reinforce compliance with global standards. And then, when the structure is strong enough, you move. Quietly. Immediately. Bottom line. That's what Alak signaled before, and that's what I would expect again. Now let's be very clear about something. This is not about dates. This is not about hype cycles. This is about pattern recognition. When reforms advance steadily without media theatrics, it often means the process has matured beyond the political stage and into the technical stage. And technical stages are handled by professionals, not politicians, not influencers, professionals, inside financial institutions, inside compliance departments, inside international banking coordination teams. Those rooms are not loud. They are precise. And the precision we're seeing right now, the tightening measures, the structured currency flows, the enhanced oversight, suggests movement that is operational, not promotional. Another important factor here is confidence. Central banks do not move exchange mechanisms unless they believe they can sustain the adjustment. Sustainability is everything. The build-up phase looks stronger than it has in previous cycles. Dollar dependency controls have been reinforced. Digital transaction penetration has expanded. Anti-smuggling operations have intensified. Regional coordination has improved. These are not symbolic gestures. These are infrastructure reinforcements, and infrastructure determines durability. You don't renovate a financial house while announcing a price change, you renovate it first. Quietly. Carefully. Then you change the valuation. The absence of hype does not equal absence of progress. In fact, it may signal the opposite. The loudest periods in the Iraqi Dinar space historically have often coincided with the least structural readiness. Speculation was high, and noise was constant. The deadlines were thrown around, rumors dominated, but structural reform was incomplete. Today feels different, feels technical, measured, disciplined. And if you've been studying this for years, as many of you have, you can sense that shift. The conversation's less about dreams and more about mechanisms. Less about hope and more about compliance. Less about rumors and more about enforcement. That's maturation. And mature systems don't scream before they act. They implement. Let's also consider timing psychology. If a monetary authority signals an adjustment in advance, markets requisition aggressively. People attempt to run the change. Liquidity distorts. Pressure builds. But if the adjustment is immediate, there's no time to game it. It simply becomes reality. And reality stabilizes faster than anticipation. That's why I believe if there is a meaningful exchange rate adjustment tied to reform progression, it will be handled the same way, effective immediately. No countdown, no theatrical rollout, just execution. Now, does that mean we assume something happens tomorrow? No. This is about structure, not prediction. But the structure is aligning. And that alignment deserves attention. You've waded through years of noise. You've heard bold claims. That tells me something about this community. It tells me you're not here for hype anymore. You're here for signals. And the signal right now is quiet advancement. The Central Bank of Iraq understands that credibility on the global stage matters. International partnerships depend on reliability. Banking integrations depend on trust, and trust is built through disciplined execution. Not hype. If something happens, it will likely happen the same way it did before. Immediate, direct, bottom line. And then the world adjusts. No fireworks. Just numbers changing on a screen. That's how modern finance works. I want you to understand something important. Patience in this space is not passive. It's strategic. When reforms advance steadily, you don't need noise. You need confirmation of structural integrity. And that's what we're seeing. Not headlines. Integrity. Not fanfare. Framework. Not hype. Execution. The silence may feel uncomfortable if you're used to constant speculation. But silence in financial reform often signals internal confidence. Stay disciplined. Watch the reforms, not the rumors. Watch the enforcement, not the excitement. Because if history repeats itself, and monetary history often rhymes, the moment won't arrive with noise. It will arrive with a policy line that reads effective immediately. And that will be that. No buildup. No warning. Just reality. This is Iraqi Dinar, and we don't chase hype here. We study structure. And right now, structure is advancing quietly. That's not something to ignore. That's something to watch very closely.